Hello, everybody, and welcome into the Line Movers Network College Football Podcast Volume number 4 for the Line Movers, College Football Week number 6 for your big breakdown. Remember, please follow us for all your college football and sports information and gambling needs on Twitter at @the_LM Network. And find us on YouTube on our channel at the Line Movers Network. Follow along for all our sports, tennis, going to get into basketball. We got football going, so follow us for everything over there on our social media sites. Once again, welcoming in our college football experts tonight. As always, we have Tyler Liddick and Ian Robbins. I'm David Dorman, and let's get into the games for this week. We're going to go into the featured games, and then we will go rapid fire. Good evening, boys. How we doing?
Great. Happy to be here for another week. Exciting times in October in college football.
Yeah, schedule's heating up. About to find out who's who has real playoff dreams and who's were just little aspirations that aren't going to come true. So.
All right, let's get right into it. Starting in the SEC, Arkansas, two teams here that it took it hard last week. Both got absolutely crushed, but they were against Alabama and Georgia. So now let's see how they measure up against each other. Arkansas is going down to the Grove into Ole Miss. Ole Miss opened as about a 6-point favorite. It's really just sticking around there. Total about 66. Let's start with Ian. Arkansas in Ole Miss.
Yeah, two very disappointing teams here taking the field in Arkansas and Ole Miss. Two teams that really had their hopes up, really had some big games, big moments, big spots last week, and really just fell flat on their face. This game, I think I'm going to back Arkansas this game. I think that Ole Miss had their whole season pinned up in that Alabama game. I think the disappointment of just kind of getting thrown off the field from start to finish is going to really sink with them and maybe even kind of ruin the rest of their season. They always said there's a saying, don't let one loss turn into two. I think this is a situation where one loss will turn into two for Ole Miss. And I think 6 points is laying too much. Arkansas is still a team on the rise. Coach Pittman is still going to have those guys ready. I think Arkansas was happy to be in that spot, in a game-day spot against Georgia, but not necessarily expecting there. They weren't pinning their whole season on that game. And I think Arkansas's offense is going to have a little bit of time, a little easier time moving the ball against the Ole Miss defense as they did against the Georgia defense, that's for sure. So I'm going to lean Arkansas here in this play. I just think Ole Miss is going to be a team to watch and see how they respond to that huge loss that they just had.
Tyler.
Yeah, I agree there. I think Arkansas was a little overmatched last week. I expected them to put up a little more fight than what they did defensively, especially. But I think they just didn't have the right game plan. I also think they were unprepared in totality for that matchup. I think that 19 fifth or sixth year seniors for Arkansas will help them right the ship this week. Like Ian said, I do believe Ole Miss's Super Bowl is Alabama every year, and Matt Carroll's Heisman hopes are probably out the window. So I think that Arkansas probably can cover this number, and I would take the 6 as well.
Great. Moving on. Big 12 showdown in Dallas at the Cotton Bowl. Half the stadium will be in burnt orange, the other in Sooner red. Oklahoma has barely escaped basically every week. Texas has looked pretty good since the disaster with Arkansas. Game opened as Oklahoma about a 5-point favorite. It's down to 3. Texas is getting 3. The Sooners are laying it in Dallas. Tyler, what do you got?
So I was impressed with Texas last week. TCU is 7-2 against Texas since joining the conference. TCU kind of treats that like their Super Bowl in the Big 12, and Texas conquered it. Steve Sarkisian has the offense working the right way. Bashan Johnson, the running back, is working tremendous in the backfield. I mean, last week, I think he had 205 yards total rushing, and they had, 262. So with Texas putting up numbers like that on the ground and Oklahoma not facing a team as talented as Texas yet, I think Texas has a chance here. I don't think Oklahoma is as good as the number 6 ranking in the nation. I think there's a lot of teams better than Oklahoma this year. Unfortunately, until Oklahoma loses, they're going to be ranked number 6 in the nation. So Spencer Rattler, again, they were behind last week. They came back and won. I don't think Oklahoma is a good team. I think they can fall behind to Texas early. If they do fall behind to Texas early and Texas has the chance to run the ball to stay ahead, it could be a long day for them. But I think this is a small spread and it's probably going to end up being a touchdown game. So I would lay off of it.
Ian.
Yeah, look at this matchup. First Red River rivalry game for Coach Sark. Of course, Lincoln Riley's been here before. I do think Texas is on the rise. I think they got a really nice matchup last week for their run game, their strong running game. Bijan Robinson going against TCU, who's just not a great run defense. And we also saw last week that Spencer Rattler did start to make some improvements. He had his best quarterback performance of the year by the numbers. Maybe that's a sign of things to come. Maybe it's an aberration. We'll find out. But this number has drifted down to 3. I think that's the resistance point. I can't see it going further to 3 at this point. Choosing a team to win, I would take Oklahoma. The spot that I like even better here is the under. I think this number is based on previous year's matchups. Got a Texas running team. You got Oklahoma, who's more of a defensive-based team, who's going to try to establish a little bit more of an identity with ball control. I do think the under is in play here. We have seen some really big unders in this rivalry game before, with the crowd being split. But I think at the end, I'm going to lean this way. I think Oklahoma is going to show their true talent. Their defense is going to come through. I think the experience that they have, and I think Spencer Rattler is going to actually put on a performance that's going to put his name back on the radar.
Awesome. CBS SEC game of the week heads down to Auburn. If you're listening to the narrative in college football the last few weeks, all we've heard is it's Alabama, Georgia, and everybody else. But when the SEC goes on the road, every game is tough. Georgia's heading down to Auburn. Auburn's coming off a huge emotional win. Nix came back in after he had gotten benched the week before, came back in, thrilling, crazy final quarter in Death Valley and LSU, and he pulls his Auburn Tigers out with a victory. Now they're going home, and everyone's telling him how good Georgia is. Can Auburn spring the upset here, boys? Auburn was originally getting 15, down a tick, about to 14.5 total, 51.5 open, currently 46.
Yeah, this game, this is the oldest rivalry in the Deep South. That's what they call this game in the SEC. These teams meet every single year. It's the East-West crossover game. So Georgia and Auburn are definitely familiar rivals here. They do not like each other. Fans do not like each other at all. Georgia given a lot of points here. Auburn has really improved. They had that tough loss at Penn State, but coming back last week, big time for Bo Nix. I think Bigsby looked as good, but big time win for Bo Nix to pull that one out on the road. On the road of the SEC, David, you said that. Going on the road at the SEC, we have seen no matter what team it is, you go on the road, it is going to be a struggle. It's going to be a struggle. Fans are into it. These fans will definitely be into it. Jordan-Hare Stadium will be rocking for that game. And the big question for me is, we just saw Georgia play almost a perfect game against Arkansas, and everybody was watching that. It was a game day game. They just played a perfect game. Can they replicate that? Can they do that again? I think if you're getting over 2.5 touchdowns or 2 touchdowns plus, I think you got to take the points there with Auburn. And 14.5, as long as it stays above 14.5, I'm definitely going to take the points. I like Georgia to win, but I think this will be a little bit closer than people might think.
Tyler.
Yeah. If you would see this matchup on last Saturday, I probably think Georgia's laying 3 or more touchdowns going into the way that last week was. Bo Nix kind of bailed Auburn out on a 4th down play. I don't know that Auburn should have won that game. It is a tough place to play, though. However, And it is a rivalry. Georgia just came off a perfect game, like Ian said. Stetson Bennett played great, coming in to fill in for JT Daniels. I don't know if Bennett's playing again this week, but I wouldn't see any reason why Kirby Smart would take him out of the lineup after his performance last week. The Georgia defense is impressive, very impressive, and Bo Nix struggles, but he plays better at home. So I do think that's a lot of points to give. The under was 51.5. It's now 46.5. So I can't go on that either now because it's 5 points out of the way. Probably a total stay away from here for me. I'm just not impressed with Bo Nix at all. And I know he has a tendency to turn the ball over. So if you're looking for a late score, if they're down 17 and they're driving, I don't want to put my money in Bo Nix's hands to cover the game.
Moving on, at 4 p.m. Eastern, the Big Ten takes center stage. Penn State's going to Iowa City to take on Iowa. Our own Tyler Liddick, the Penn State Nittany fan, will be in attendance in Iowa City. A huge Big Ten showdown. I can't remember the last time the Big Ten had a game this big. 2 top 5 teams, and Michigan and Ohio State not involved. We have the Nittany Lions heading to Iowa. Iowa's been a small favorite all week, started at about 1 up to 2.5, still seems to be under a field goal. The total sat at about 42 all week. We're going to go to Tyler, our Penn State Nittany Lion rep first. Tyler.
Yeah, big matchup here. It's a big matchup for both teams, biggest matchup for both teams in a long time. Do I worry for Penn State? Yes. Reasons why I worry for Penn State. Iowa has covered. So with that being said, they're two very talented defenses. Do I think either of these defenses are good enough to stick with a team in the SEC? I'm not sure about that. I don't think either of these offenses have the speed. This game's going to come down to the battle of mediocre quarterback Sean Clifford versus Petrus from Iowa. And I don't think either of them is going to make a big play. Penn State luckily tried to get the running game going last week against Indiana. It was a little bit successful, but it was Indiana. So is that something to judge them off of? Jahan Dotson, he's going to have to make big plays for Penn State. Parker Washington's going to have to step up. He had some drops last week. Sean Clifford threw a costly interception early in the game, and Penn State made a huge defensive stop early in the first quarter. Two best defenses. Last time we've seen a matchup like this is 1985 was Michigan versus Iowa. And that was in Iowa. So that's the last time we've seen a matchup like this in Iowa. I believe the crowd will be ready. I don't think that this game, it is for one team, a Big Ten championship game. So Penn State, they can still make it. Iowa's got to go through Michigan on the other side. But the way I see it is I kind of think Iowa's going to win this game. Home field defense. Penn State struggles on the run. I think Iowa can lock down on the passing game and make Penn State have to run the ball. And then I'm scared to see what happens. So I think Iowa's probably going to win this game, though.
Wow. Ian.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be a battle. This will be a true old school Big Ten type game. Over under at 40, 41. Quite the number, especially in this day and age of college football. I'm going to monitor that spread. It's ticked up to 2.5 now. Iowa given 2.5. If that gets up to 3, I'm definitely going to take the other side with Penn State or even more. It's definitely a tough travel spot. It's about as far east to west as you can go in the Big Ten. So a pretty big spot. Travel, the crowd's definitely going to be into it. I think Penn State's got a little bit more talent. I think they've set up for this year a little bit more. I think Iowa's a little bit more of a surprise. Penn State was kind of coming in with some expectations this year. Franklin versus Ferentz, both big game coaches, both been there. Franklin maybe feeling a little bit more pressure to get that big win. The fan base may be a little bit more pressure. Kurt Ferentz knows that he is Iowa's coach. He's kind of proven that, especially recently, that he's going to be Iowa's coach. So definitely even matchups there. It's kind of hard to pick a winner. You might want to look in play if there's an early touchdown and things start to slow down and the spread might drift past 3 on either side. 41.5 points. You see that kind of over under, you might want to think over. That's too little points. That's such a few game. But if this game both teams getting above the 20s, I don't think so. I think under could be a nice look there, at least a lean. Like I said, I'm going to monitor the spread. It's too close to call for me right now. I'm going to try to see the first couple drives and see what I think live. If it gets up to 3, I'm going to take Penn State. Anything under 3, I'm just going to kind of back off right now.
Awesome. Those are my guys. Tyler Liddick, Ian Robbins. I'm David Dorman with the Line Movers Network. Before moving on to everyone's favorite part, the game show that's sweeping America. We're going to play rapid fire. Going off first, we're going to have a Friday night special out west. Stanford, fresh off their upset over Oregon, is going into Arizona State and going into Phoenix. Arizona State's off their own upset of UCLA in the Rose Bowl. Stanford opened about getting 12. Now they're getting about 11. Again, in Phoenix, in Tempe. Total stat there all week at about 51.5. Ian, what do you see here out west?
Stanford coming up the big upset over Oregon, maybe smashing the Pac-12's hopes at a playoff contender. I think Stanford's been getting better. The one thing with Stanford is they didn't return a lot of guys. A lot of guys, they graduate. They don't look for 5th years when they go to Stanford. But now starting getting experience. I think they're just getting too many points going on the road to Arizona State. I'll take the points from Stanford here.
Interesting, Tyler.
Yeah, I'm a little afraid that Stanford might have had their biggest win of the year and might not be fully recovered with that. I'm looking at the under here. I think Arizona State's point production last week was based solely off of errors on UCLA's offense and the fact that Chip Kelly just constantly run plays. So he's susceptible to go 3 and out more often than anyone else as well. And I think we see this on a Friday night, and I think we could see a low scoring game here, maybe in the 20s each team. So under 51.5 is my play.
Really good. Moving on, Big 12 in full effect at 12 p.m. high noon on Saturday. West Virginia, the Mountaineers are going into Waco to battle Baylor. Baylor was open as about a 2-point favorite, up a tick to 3. Total now sitting at about 44.5. West Virginia in Baylor. Tyler.
I think Baylor wins this game. I've been impressed with Baylor's defense all year long. We had question marks going into Baylor's defense last week. They only let up 24 points. They only scored 14, but I think West Virginia's defense is worse than Oklahoma State's. And I think Baylor can win this game at home this week. West Virginia is a question mark from week to week. You never know what West Virginia team you're going to get. They play Oklahoma to a 3-point game, and then Texas Tech beats them. So I think Baylor can win this game.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree there. I think Baylor wins the game, get the early start in Texas on the road, another long travel spot for West Virginia in the Big 12. In West Virginia, they lost 2 in a row. See where their head's at. Baylor, tough loss, but I think they rebound. Coach Rain will have them ready.
Great. A night game, 7:30 Eastern. Notre Dame, the Fighting Irish, fresh over their home loss to the Cincinnati Bearcats, are going into Virginia Tech at night. Enter Sandman. This will be a tough spot for Notre Dame. Notre Dame is about a 1.5 point favorite, open the week higher at about over a field goal at about 3.5. We have a total of 46.5 currently. Ian, Notre Dame in Virginia Tech.
I think Notre Dame's been overrated all year. I just don't think they have the same kind of talent level they've had in past years. Tough travel spot going to Virginia Tech in one of their ACC mandatory games here. Virginia Tech, we also don't know a lot about that. The big win week 1, North Carolina. I think I'm going to monitor Notre Dame's quarterback situation. If Cone starts, definitely be playing Virginia Tech. See where they stand with that. I think we'll be playing Virginia Tech regardless. Just think that Notre Dame's still overrated a little bit.
Tyler.
Yeah, I think this is an overplay for me. I don't think Notre Dame's defense is very good. I've been saying that all year. If they don't get turnovers, they let points up. They got turnovers against Wisconsin, and they didn't get turnovers against Cincinnati. I think Virginia Tech at home probably can score 28 points. Notre Dame scores 24-31. I think it's going to be a very close game. Notre Dame could be, primed for another loss after losing last week, questionable quarterback situation. And the defense is always questionable. Virginia Tech's a tough place to play. Crowd will be fired up Saturday night. It should be a good matchup. I think these teams are both kind of mediocre this year, borderline, top 25 to 40 in the nation. So we'll see where it goes. I think it'll be an over for me, 46.5 over.
Great. Moving on. There's another huge game in the Big Ten. This one's going to be at night, 7:30 Eastern. The 5-0 Michigan Wolverines head to Lincoln, Nebraska. Nebraska struggled out of the gates, looked terrible against Illinois in week 0. Since then, Scott Frost has really got his team focused, and they're actually playing some good football. Michigan has national title hopes, and their fan base is excited again, first time in a long time. Michigan in Lincoln, Nebraska. Nebraska, this line surprised me a little. Opened at about 4.5, now down to 3. Nebraska's only getting 3 at home with a total of about 52. What do you think, Tyler?
I think Michigan's the more talented team here. And I think that Harbaugh knows he has a good team this year. And I think he's trying to keep it, hush, hush, Jim Harbaugh style, keep it under the wraps. Don't talk about it. Just keep it business as usual. And that's what Michigan has done. They've flown under the radar so far. You can see this line get down to a 3. I would take Michigan. I think they can win this game. I do worry about them coming off of that win against Wisconsin and maybe not being totally prepared this week. But I think Michigan's the better team from top to bottom of the roster. And I don't think there's anyone on Nebraska that is more talented than a player on Michigan. I don't think Scott Frost has done a great job recruiting. And I think Scott Frost going into this year didn't know what he had. So he's probably lucky to be sitting where he is right now.
Ian.
Yeah, you said it, David. Nebraska's getting better. They were in the showcase game against Illinois week 0, and we all saw them lose and play very, very poorly. But since then, they've really improved. Played Oklahoma tight, blew out Northwestern last week. They've been getting better, and this is definitely a line that stands out. Michigan on their back-to-back road games now, tough travel spots. Going to Wisconsin, now they're going to go cross country, across the Midwest, at least to Nebraska to play. Nebraska's got a little bit of optimism there, and this is a litmus test for Michigan. They win this game, they're legit. They lose this game, kind of back where they are, and we can start questioning whether Harbaugh's the guy over there. It's also a line that sticks out. I think it's be a very public versus pro side. I think you see the line Michigan 5-0 against Nebraska, only given field goal and a 3.5. I think that's going to be a public side. I think it might go up a tick. I think you were already seeing the line movement. Nebraska getting a little bit line movement down. I'm going to be on that side. I'm going to be Nebraska. Definitely getting 3.5 and get the hook. See that Nebraska might win this game. Tough spot for Michigan right here.
Great breakdowns, both of you. Thank you. Moving to the SEC at night, 7:30 Eastern. Ian, you might need to plug your ears for a second here. 2 teams going in absolute opposite directions. LSU is going into Kentucky. LSU had every opportunity last week to win at home against Auburn. On the other side, Kentucky pulls off a miraculous, huge win against Ian's Florida Gators. Bob Stoops has his boys at Kentucky absolutely rolling. They're undefeated, and they're thinking big. Here comes the big bad LSU Tigers, who usually trounce on Kentucky. Kentucky is about a 3-point favorite. Ian, what do you see here?
Kentucky's got talent. I was high on them coming into the season. Definitely after watching them pretty closely last week. Crowd is rocking. We know the Kentucky fan base can get behind their team. Coach Mike Stoops has been building this program for years. He's the longest tenured coach in the SEC besides Nick Saban. Says something for you. He's been building this program. So can they consolidate their big win? They got the win over Florida. They're on the map now. They're ranked. Can they consolidate that with the win against struggling LSU? I think they can. They got talent. That's the one thing. It's not just Kentucky. Kentucky has talent. They got guys who will play in the NFL. And I think that's a big deal. LSU is going the opposite direction. Home field advantage is a factor now in Kentucky. Coach Stoops has an advantage over a lot of coaches he coaches against. I like Kentucky to win.
Wow. Tyler.
Yeah, it's an interesting take there, Ian, because I think this is the exact opposite of the last game we just talked about, where you see the pros on the side of Nebraska and the public on the side of Michigan. I think you see the pros on the side of LSU here and the public on the side of Kentucky coming off that big win against Florida. I'm just worried if Kentucky can keep it up 2 weeks in a row. It's high expectations for Kentucky. They haven't done it in, I don't know, all of Kentucky's history. So what do we expect out of Kentucky? Do we have expectations for Kentucky football? Is that where we're at right now in 2021? Is we sit here and we make expectations for Kentucky football, or do we say that LSU is on decline and possibly getting rid of Ed Orgeron, and that's why we like Kentucky? I like the under here. I think Ed Orgeron is on decline. I think Kentucky is talented on defense. They held Florida to 13 points, 20-13 was the final.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Kentucky has a good defense, and I think LSU struggles on offense, especially. We saw them struggle last week against Auburn on offense, and I think they're going to struggle this week against Kentucky. Who wins? I don't know, because I don't have any expectations for Kentucky football, although they are getting better. We've seen it over the last couple of years, but I think the under is the play here. So I'll be on under 50.
Very good. Moving out west to the Pac-12, who playoff-wise looks like they are in big trouble. Oregon loses to Stanford last week. No one's undefeated. The Pac-12, again, probably going to be on the outside looking into the playoffs. But this week, we do have Utah, and the Utes are going to USC. We all know what USC is in disarray. Utah's had some losses from BYU that people were telling were so high on this Utah team coming into this season. USC is a 3-point favorite at home in LA. Total of about 52.5, which is up about 4 points from 48.5. Utes at Trojans. What do we have, Ian?
Yeah, definitely following the line movement with the points. USC's playing an interim coach. Utah kind of trying to find their identity here this early part of the season. USC, I think, is more interested in scoring and getting their stats and trying to get guys into the next level with the interim coach for sure. So I'm going to go look for points, be on the over, fireworks in LA.
Yeah, I think the more important storyline here is when does USC reach out to Urban Meyer? I don't think either of these teams really have much to play for this season. Obviously, the Pac-12 seems to be dead to rights unless the Big 12 or the Big 10 has a couple of teams lose a couple of games, and then Oklahoma would do the same. I just don't see the Pac-12 having any life. With that being said, that makes me believe that the defense is you're not going to see players out there trying to get hurt or anything of that nature. So I like the over as well. I think we'll see some points. It started at 48.5. It's up to 52.5. I think we'll see a little bit of buyback, probably back down to maybe 51 will be the final. And I think you can get over 51 closer to game time. But I think Ian's right. We'll probably see some teams that just don't have any interest in playing any defense.
Great. My guys say points in LA Saturday night. One more game in the SEC, a night game, 8 p.m. Eastern. CBS Sports couldn't figure out which game they liked more, the Georgia game or the Alabama game. So they said, screw it, we'll take them both. So Alabama is going to invade Texas A&M and College Station at night. Alabama opened as about a 14.5 point favorite. It wasn't enough. The public drove it right up, at least a field goal, to sitting right now at about 17.5, 18 at different spots. Total sitting at 51. Last game in our rapid fire segment. Tyler, what do you got here in College Station Saturday night?
Yeah, I was on the wrong side of Alabama. Finally, I tried to go on the other side of the first half last week, thinking that, Lane Kiffin would be prepared. you turn the ball over on your own 6-yard line on your first possession, and you're basically doomed from that point on. I think we've seen enough of Texas A&M. You can put them in the same boat as Wisconsin this year. Basically their ship has sailed, the effort has sailed as well. And I think Alabama is going to lay a beat down on them. I think it'll be more than 21 points. I think that 17 is just fine of a number to lay. You could probably lay it.
Wow, Ian.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there, Tyler. Texas A&M is the team that had expectations. This preseason, this was a circled game as maybe the SEC West. The title game for the SEC West, potential national title implications, but Texas A&M is just nowhere to be found this year. It's really hard for the fan base to get behind them when they had such high expectations. Really hard for the players to get up knowing that they had such high expectations, even with Alabama coming to town without much really in their future to play for this season. You start looking at like Tyler said, Wisconsin, teams like that, Texas A&M, who had expectations and kind of have faltered early, see where their mindset is as they head in. And Alabama's just a machine, and I think they keep rolling with them. They have a chance to shut them out. Texas A&M offense hasn't been doing much. Alabama by a couple touchdowns for sure, 3 plus.
So the Line Mover Network says roll Tide. And when Ian says someone's going to get shut out, we should be listening, because last week Ian said Georgia was going to put a shutout up there, and they did. So watch out now this week for the Crimson Tide, D, as Tyler and Ian both like the Tide to roll. Again, please check us out on social media, on Twitter at @the_LM Network, on YouTube at the Line Movers Network channel. Again, for my college football experts, Tyler Liddick and Ian Robbins, who were sensational again this week, I'm David Dorman. Follow us, please, on social media. We'll be back next week with another great podcast. And I also believe we'll be breaking down Indian Wells tennis later in the week. So make sure you find us for all those great insights and podcasts. And we're going to sign off for now. For Tyler Liddick, Ian Robbins, I'm David Dorman on the Line Movers Network.
Thanks, guys.